there again. Well, whilst on the subject of portraiture recently, I've decided to have a little go at watercolour now and play around with the medium using a portrait of Danial and Gowan, fellow artist, who very kindly had a go at painting my portrait recently from a photograph. So to insult him back, I will, not that he insulted me, it was a very nice picture in the end, thank you Daniel. But to have fun back, I'm going to now play around with a bit of watercolour and a portrait of his, and let's look first at what we can do on the computer with those. Daniel was asking me about what we can do with backgrounds. Well, in this particular case I want to bring the background actually through the watercolour to make it a part of it from the very beginning, and you can see how I've blurred the existing background to give the effect of light that I want, where I want light against dark and dark against light. Obviously we can put somebody into a background, but I know for me I prefer to actually use the lighting that's there or work around colours that are there. It's easier for me anyway. And also how we can enhance those for different mediums. If we look now at this portrait, the original one, and you see I've actually given him a bit more of a smile as well by using photo paint and just lifting the corner of his mouth up a fraction, so you can adjust it just for fun. I could have done this on the canvas, but it's easier for me to see things actually on screen. And then I've posterised it and taken it into different facets of colour, which I could use later for oils, and it helps me to see those shapes more easily. I noticed recently in the Sky Portrait Challenge that most of the artists were now using digital photography. They were photographing in on their portrait model and then coming back with their screens to one side, and even using graphs on screen to work out a grid, to work out how to draw these, which is rather fun, makes life a lot easier. And of course, if the sitter is a long way away from you, you've got that close-up to work from, as well as seeing the light from a distance. I know my eyesight isn't good these days. I should wear glasses, but I don't. That's why I paint as an impressionist, because I can't see so clearly, but it's about light as well. I want this picture to be fairly loose as well. I deliberately want to work up lovely light loose colours in this and gradually build them up. Some wet into wet, yes, but I want to play around with overlaying glazes a little bit more on this one. So we'll have a go at Daniel, and as I said, I've shown you now these different ways of working on the computer, which could show you different directions to different media. It would be rather a nice one to do with watercolour and pastel too, wouldn't it, as we did with that young Indian girl a while ago. Right, let's start off with the drawing though, because there are so many ways that we could start this drawing off. And I want to start off with this piece about how the first two marks delineate the entire composition, because once you've decided where the first two marks go, you've said the whole scale of everything, where those are. Everything else has to work to those. We'll do a very basic measurement on the side of the photograph, and I'll show you how I'm going to work this particular drawing up. We can work loosely within a reasonably tight drawing, but we can't work loosely within a bad drawing. Not really, not unless you're very good, and I don't say I am. If you're very good, you can work loosely within just a few marks, or not even bother with the drawing at all, which I often do with painting, or just very basic marks with oils. But I think in this case with the watercolour, I want to have all my proportions and the basic drawing already there, and maybe even quite tightly over some areas like the eyes and so on. Medium wise I'm going to use a little bit of masking fluid just on the glasses, but I'm going to use white acrylic or gouache for the other highlights in the hair and so on, rather than mask and have sharp edges everywhere. Right, let's be getting on with it and we'll see how the drawing goes. Right, if I want to scale this picture, and this is a good trick for any picture onto any canvas, this size is not the same proportions as this bit of paper. So I want to work towards the bottom of this. If I want to leave a little border, say here, for a start, because there's going to be a little bit more there, it'll be framed anyway. If I take this corner into this edge of the paper, and then I take a diagonal from here, through here, where it meets here is where that proportion would be the same. So very simple, from that corner to that corner, on this edge, right through here, where it hits there. So that is where my watercolour should be happening within here. Now I can have a little bit more above, so I'm going to deliberately leave myself a bit more space above the head here to play with the wet in wet, just a little bit more. I'm going to have that much more. So I know that his head has to come somewhere around here if I want it to this scale to fill the paper. And if I mark this off now to quarters and half, so approximate quarters, I don't need to be, I'm pretty good at just judging this without a ruler, get used to it over the years. So approximate quarters, make sure that is opposite the other one. Now we know where things are going to come here. That eye line is just the top of the glasses, just below the quarter here. So we do the same on this bit of paper here. a mark there, there, and here, same on the rest. Because we know that this scale now is approximately the same as the photograph, because I've measured up. Don't forget we're going to here, not down to the bottom. And then again we'll have our marks here. And that's what I often do with almost any painting, landscape, anything else. If I'm working, I just get my basic measurements on the outside and then I can work across. When you were children, you've seen these comic books where you join the dots up and a face appears. I think that's quite a good way to draw, to find the salient points first. Now, where are the most important points here that come on these lines and down here? We find those points first, and then we gradually get one shape working to another. So I know that the head is going to come here at that angle. There's the angle of the pencil. I bring the pencil up. I know that I can make a mark there that's approximately right for the top of that head. I've already got that correct angle there. The corner of his eye here comes up. There's that mark there. That's halfway. It's just inside a quarter. So if I say, right, there's my halfway. It's just inside a quarter. It's about here to the same proportion. If I come down from there, right, just lightly, and it's almost dead on. Let's see that. It's almost dead on that line. It's a fraction below that line. So that is this point here. So that angle there should be this point here. And if that's correct, then I should be able to come up and just sketch that angle in. Just that head comes up like that and back, and that gives me an approximation of that size and scale now. Make sure that that is the right angle, up and through. Just lightly. I don't need to fill these bits in between even really, but now this is almost level, and it's just below here we said, so coming across here, let's do a very light construction line, and then down from this line, let's see, that mark there, which is this one here, we know that the glasses are curving just inside there. The glasses come out there and they come out to almost halfway. There's the halfway line there. Here's my halfway line here. So those glasses are coming out to almost there. So I make a mark there, get the angles right. They finish almost halfway down this mark here. So if I come down here, look, that's just below halfway. Here's halfway, just below halfway is about here. So the angle of those glasses there, and that's where his nose is also going to be, the length for his nose there. And you see how now the side of the face is already coming, just by measuring one thing to another. We aren't drawing the whole, I'm not filling in the bits in between. All I want at the moment is the impression of getting the whole finished. It's like the effect of light in a watercolour, or let's get the whole thing proportionately right one to another first. Now, that part of the nose where it just touches is just inside here. So if that was the halfway line, that's a quarter. We're about an eighth. So halfway, quarter, eighth, come down from there. And that should be where that part of the nose, the glasses comes around here a little bit shorter. The nose should be about here. On a level with that line there is this. I'll just do my halfways and quarters on here again, so we're getting right down to it. So it's just above that quarter. So here we are, there's that quarter there. This line is about a third up, so about a third up from here is here. That should be about there then. That's the line of the centre of the glasses there, down to here. So it's almost a jigsaw method again. I teach this jigsaw method of mine with painting. And this is almost a jigsaw method now with doing the drawing. The angle of the nose comes down here, and the bottom of the nostril, let's have a look, come across here. There's my halfway again, here's my quarter way again. Bottom of that nostril is just in between, so again, again, if we've got that's a halfway there, that's a halfway there, the nose is just below halfway again, so halfway there, and halfway again. So we should think the nose then is about here. Just bring that round, down. Nose should be coming round there. And the base of the nose, yes, it finishes about a quarter. Down there again. So I'm about right there, that's it. So I'll just carry on like that, and I'm going to speed up the film, and you'll just see me making these marks as I go across the paper. Gradually then we'll see this face appear. Well, there we are. I think we've about got the proportions right and the basic drawing there. I could now work in with paint. What I'm going to do actually first is just work some of the details in with the pencil a little bit darker, because I want those to actually show through rather than have to paint them in too much detail. So I'm going to now work up some of these areas of dark on the glasses and things. I've got a 2B pencil here. It will disappear anyway quite a bit into the drawing, but some of these areas I just want a little bit darker in detail to start with, because I want to paint fairly loosely during this. I don't want this showing too much elsewhere, but I do want some of these little bits of dark just to, rather than have to start going around with a fine brush too much at the end of it, just to show here. Just these salient points again as I'm talking about in darks. With this particular piece of work. I like to explore and experiment, so I don't always paint everything in the same way. Just really bring out these bits of the glasses here with the drawing now. And then we'll see how they work as the paint goes over them. And as I said, I was going to put a little bit of masking fluid just on some of these edges here, just to give me that sharpness of light where I want them, just here. To exaggerate the smile just a fraction there, just to get a more gentle mouth. Right, that'll about do that. Hopefully the rest we can do with the paint. So we'll get the paints prepared now, ready. Now I'm going to put a little bit of masking fluid over these parts here, just over the top of the rims of the lens, the glasses. I said I wouldn't be doing much with masking fluid, so this one is rather good, the SAA one, because it has an applicator on top where we've got a small bit of wire that just keeps it clean, and a needle so that we can get the fine line of the liquid out. It's always best just to test it first on the edge of the paper, but we should, just by dragging it along, be able to get these little bits of light left behind, which will give me a sharper edge just for the masking later. Don't want much on here, just a little bit here and there, just where these little bits of highlights are. We just let those dry off, so we don't need much, just reflections. But those are the only hard edges that I'm going to do. The rest I should put in, if I want anything else in the hair, I'll put them in with white gouache or acrylic later. Before we start, let me just run through my palette again. I like this colour circle of colours, and where I sort my liquid paints out. I'm using artist quality only watercolour paints. They're much finer, they're much better, they're longer lasting. It's not a saving to buy the students' watercolours, and you can get cheaper artist qualities as well. For instance, if you buy them from the SAA, they do their own make, they're almost as cheap as buying the students' quality, and that's getting artist quality. So there you are. You can see here the warm and cools of each colour. We've got the cooler yellows, the warmer reds, the cooler reds, in other words go towards purple. Same with the blues, the warmer blues through to purple, and then the cooler blues through to here. So I've got everything I require there. Now let's look at the brushes. I think it's a bit like Fisherman. With Fisherman you get a chap who has hundreds of collections of floats, and a lot of floats within those collections, and they only use one or two favourites. With art it can be the same, but actually with watercolour I keep a large selection of brushes because I need to do perhaps more different effects with them. Sponges, magic sponge here for cleaning away the watercolour off the paper. I keep tissue paper as well for doing the same thing. The sponges for texturing, different sponge shapes and surfaces for that. Little tube of white gouache for doing those highlights if I require them, if I haven't used the masking fluid. Pencils of different types, ordinary pencils, drawing pencils, rubbers, and Chinograph pencils here, which we use for the snow scenes and so on, waterproof. They just peel back to sharpen, which is ideal for us. The clay shapers, which I use for the masking fluid at times, rubber tip clay shapers, fan brushes, stippling brushes, the rake brushes, which have a fork-like appearance of different, a rake of different. The bristles are formed into a rake pattern at the end. They're great for doing grasses and textures. Ordinary round brushes, flat brushes. Over here we've got a toothbrush for flicking and splattering, sword brushes, badger hair brushes, fine rakes, larger rakes, all different swords, the oval mops, my hakes. And actually today what I'm going to be doing is just that. I'm going to be using a hake to start off with, to do some of the background washes through. So that's this one, nice big hake like a mop. I'm going to be using a mop as well, a mop brush, and then I'll go down to some finer round brushes later. Right, I'm going to start the watercolour now, and I'll start with my nice big hake brush, lovely brushes to use. And I want to do a light background which is going to work right through the face. So wet into wet effects at first. And I'm going to start with some turquoise, some beautiful turquoise. I want to paint a lot of wet into wet for this, so I have this lovely turquoise going through the back. And that turquoise comes in through the hair here as well, so we're going to paint over the face. And let the colours blend in right up and through here. That cool comes in through the hair there, down through the ear a bit here. It comes right down through the jersey here, under the neck here. To blend these colours in, because I want a wet into wet background, just an effective light's what I want. I'm just going to paint very loosely at first, down around here. Nice big brushwork, right through there. You can see what I'm after a little bit, even now it's starting to come together. And around the head. Don't want hard edges, that's what I don't want, is hard edges. We're using a Waterford £140 knot paper, in case you want to know. Bits getting onto the paper here from somewhere. That comes right down through into there. Now, what I want to do now is get some of the cobalt violet. I want to just give a coating of that, cool though it is, all the way down through here. Right down through the neck, because as I say, what I want is an effective light at the moment. I do not want hard edges. Right down through the face there. And I'm going to lift out a bit again. Right, to lift out now. Take some raw sienna. Just bring that down and through. Right down through here. Just to give preliminary washes. To start to feel my colours. Raw sienna, a bit stronger up here. These soft effects I want of the light. Down through here. I want wet into wet painting at the moment. Just an effective light. There we are. Now I'm going to go to the background again and go a bit stronger. Those colours. A little bit of green now to the turquoise. A little bit more cerulean blue. Just drop in a bit stronger around here. As I say, what I want is an effective light. So slightly stronger around the back of his head here. Starting to dry off, and I really don't want to get strong dry edges, I just want these wet into wet effects. This paper's a little bit like blotting paper. I find it might be a little bit old, but I'm just finding it's starting to soak in a bit and give me some hard edges at times that I just don't want. Right, we've got a slightly hard edge there. We're just starting with the hair there, to feel the hair. It's coming stronger down around the neck here. Down through. Still wet, nice and wet there, so I have to keep it light there for the face, and I've got it stronger on the face later. Around the glasses there. Almost got a portrait there, haven't we? You know, it's amazing how quickly it can come together, keeping it loose. And I want to go darker up and around here because I want to get the light against the dark there. So I'm going to take some Prussian blue now and burnt sienna. Make it much darker just there. Really much darker. Right down around here, around the glasses there, on the back of his head, so it just blends around. Around the glasses. Just let it blend in down here. I'm going to go darker still. Take some more of that same colour but make it a little bit stronger. While I'm balancing that colour, you get some water. We'll just soften it down all the way around here, blend it in. A little bit coming to the glasses there, around this. You want this effect of watercolour, you want the transparency of watercolour into this. There we go. And I want the same to happen around here just a bit. Just bring in some of these darks, just a little bit around here. And down. Otherwise, what's the point in using watercolour if we don't use it for the beauty of itself? Now let's come down to the surrounding area here. So I'm painting the background in first, just letting it glow through. Same colour again, the Prussian blue and the burnt sienna. And we'll start to work our colours down here as well. And I want to go much stronger into that, so I'm going to make it a bit warmer and really get some darks coming down and around the back here. Again, using the effect of watercolour, using the effect of wet in wet to keep this looseness going. It is a watercolour after all, we're not painting, not to a very figurative portrait doing this. Just want to get this lovely looseness of colours here. There we are, and we'll leave that to dry off a bit, and we'll come back and start working into it. I'm going to lift out some pieces over here in a moment. Take my brush and just squeeze it out, and where that's spreading in there, I just want to lift out again just a bit to get the effect of the hair there, lighter against the dark. So we'll lift out some paint there, nice soft edges, effect of light. Okay, I'm going to turn to my mop now and start to build up the colours. And I may come to the background later and add more darks in, we'll see. Right, first I want to get these lovely warms going in the right places. So we'll just start to strengthen those where I want. There's glazes over here. And again, I want soft edges, so I want transparent colours with these softer edges coming in. And if I need to put wet into wet, I can do. Just find these beautiful warms and cools, and we'll let the other colours glow through there. Now, still using the mop at the moment, I'm going to use some cool colours. So I'm going to use a warmer cool, in this case the ultramarine, to glaze. And we'll start to get the shadows going, especially here on the hair. Around here, and around the ear there. Glaze that cool colour down into here. Working these blues, these shadows down. So working our cools up into it now there. Take that same blue and start glazing down to here a bit more. Strengthening up these colours now. Transparent colours, ultramarine blue. I want to come back with my brush. I'm just going to dry the brush out a bit and take some of this paint back out again. Just come back here with a bit of gouache later as well. Just need to lighten up this area here just a little bit, like the hair. Seem a little bit more translucent there. So I have a very pale light effect with the watercolour. Just the effect of light that I'm after, and we'll gradually pull out the rest of the colours. It's a bit stronger now. I'm going to take a little bit of cadmium orange into that brown from earlier and just strengthen around the head, especially at the edge here. Tickling it in. I want to keep this translucency all the time of colour. And that comes warm around there into the here, down into the lower lobe, right down through into there. There's warmer colour down the side of his nose here too. Down there, just strengthen it up a bit. It's light there, but if I just bring a glaze over, bring it down a bit stronger. Right, almost there now to be able to start really building up some stronger colour. Just going to take a little of that blue and the burnt sienna, so my ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Just start to work in a bit more of these darks into the shadows here. Just a little bit of it here and there. And down around behind the hair there. Talking of which, there is an actual hair on that paper which is forming a line. I'll just dry my brush and lift back a bit there. I may have to go back into there and touch it up later. And we'll just soften here slightly. Bit of texturing just there now, just starting to get to the stage of texturing. That'll do for the moment. Let that dry off again. Right, back into our painting. I'm almost finished with the oval. I'm going to go on to a little round soon, but for the moment just want the oval again, because I'm going to work up some of these darks again. Just at the edges here, so it's my Prussian blue and a little bit of brown again. And we're going, the second coats are going to be quite a bit darker, but this time when I come around the edge I'm going to just start doing a little bit of work on the hair. I'm just going to leave some lighter lines coming in and around here, as if there's little bits of hair showing. It comes down and around the scalp, and we come down to the foreground again, and we'll just hit down here a little bit stronger again, just on some of these edges here. And there we go. We'll just darken that slightly more, just a bit more shadow just there. Down to here, the same. A little bit more blue in that, a bit more of the ultramarine just there. A bit more ultramarine when it comes around this bit here. Right, we leave that part, and I can take my smaller brush now A round brush now. This is quite a large one. Probably a 10, is it? Can't see the number on it, but I'm pretty sure that'll be a 10. It's quite large. And we want to start working up again some of these details here. So I'll take some of that warmer colour for the hair. Just carefully mark it, just find the edges, and we'll just start to get a feeling of that hair coming out from here, through these lighter bits. We've got our masking fluid in there, remember, so we'll bring that out in a moment. Back to my bluer colour again. We'll just come around that bit of the ear. Don't want it too strong there, just indicating the hair. And the ear. Now we can start on some more of the detail there. Now, clean water, back in there. A hard edge there, but here's a softer edge, so I want to blend that in. Here's a softer edge. That's a reasonably hard edge. That's soft in there. Down into there. It's soft through here. Soft down there. Bluer, this there. And add some more ultramarine to that, deliberately, to get the blue. Go a bit stronger under that nose now it's dry. Watch your lost and found edges there, soft as it blends in. It's a bit warmer just there, so I'm going to take some more of that warm colour, drop it in, a little bit more rose into it. It's quite warm just here. You look for colours, even in watercolour. Watercolour doesn't have to be dead, doesn't have to lose its vibrancy. We'll come back to those eyes in a moment. So soften that down. There we go. Now take that warm colour again, and we'll find the lip again. We want to darken that lip just a little bit more with that warm. Because if I make this lip warmer, it means that the cools around it show better. It's time to go towards the eyes now, because we've almost got our moulding here done. A little bit more strength of colour to put under here before I do more detail into there. As a watercolour, it's nice and light, it's nice and transparent, which is what I was after. Take a bit more of that cobalt violet. Just get a bit more of that going on down to the neck here. It's a lovely colour, cobalt violet, and it's fairly transparent, so I can afford to glaze with it just a little bit more down here. Don't want too much, but just enough to just there. We're going to put blue there in a minute anyway. Now, while I've got that ultramarine on my brush, and it's a thin layer of ultramarine, just going to put his pupil in. And the iris. Can't really see the pupils because the light's shining in them so much, so I should go back there with a bit of white later. Just make that a little bit bluer now around here, so that the blue really does start to play. And now I've got that on my brush, I can look at where the shadow comes under the nose here. That's bluer under there. That shadow comes right out from under the nose, down here. And we need to soften that in a fraction up here where the shadow comes, just on top of the lip there. I don't want to get messy, so I don't want to do too much more to that for the minute. Now, as long as it's dry enough, I can add a bit more up there to the eye. Let that dark come around. Put a few bits of glazing down here again. Soften those in just a moment. Dark against his nose there. Dark around that bit of the... So some clean water and just soften that in so that the reflection comes back in there again. And again we've got to come back here and soften some of these marks in. Dropping in these bits of wet into wet at the moment. Now, this time I'm going to take the ultramarine on the brown rather than the Prussian in the brown. Go around there again, just a bit more again, just around the hair here, just up into there, and here again. And again take the water at the moment. I still want to go a little bit darker yet, a bit more of the ultramarine. Drip a bit more into there. Really do feel that I've got some slightly darker bits just to bring that head out a bit more. So I'm going to take a bit more warmth, a bit more brown into here, just to bring this forward, down here a bit more. I just want to come back now with some much stronger warm to take the burnt sienna. That little touch of blue with it just to darken it a fraction. This is where I want to start coming in on these bits here where I want them to really stand out a bit more. Against that light later. I do want this sharper edge, dark, much stronger colour now to show against the translucency of the skin. I still want to be quite fine with it. You can see now how that's starting to make the face stand out a bit more, and the softer marks are appearing a bit softer now because of these slightly harder ones. Should have done that earlier, but we can blend edges now. Now back up to here. I'm still using a fairly fine brush, but I'm going to go down now to some Prussian again on my dark. I just want to darken the eye a bit here, a bit more. Just to give a bit more depth to the eye there. And you know, we're not far off as far as I'm concerned. We're not far off finishing that as a watercolour. It isn't meant to be anything else. I don't want it to be, like I say, a very strong illustration, just what it is, a painting using watercolour. And we've got the effective light of a watercolour without getting too detailed. Now what I've got to do is remove the masking fluid and also put a little bit of white in here and there. I'll just find the back of his hair, just indicate the back of that silver hair there. Not too much, just a little indication of one or two of the darks, just blending in there, just to feel it. So I want the effect of light more than anything. Right, we'll stop there again, let it dry. See if we can take off this masking fluid now.
Hopefully things are dry enough here. Hopefully you can leave those little bits of white that were there earlier to now gleam a little more. They've got a little bit mucky, but there we go. That's them. Just there and there. I'm going to touch those up with a little bit of gouache as well. But at least they're there. Now I'm going back to my Hake a moment. I just want to come back and play a little bit with the background here. I'm not quite happy with how this is finished. I want to just add a little bit more liveliness to that background around his head. Bring it out a bit, so I'm going to just do a little bit of loose dry brush work around it. There we go. Just to bring that back a bit more. So deliberately doing dry brush work now, but at this stage I can because it's much later on. There we are, leave that. Just come around his face a little bit here. Not get too strong there, we'll just lift back a bit, soften it a bit there. Otherwise it'll be a bit of a mistake, that's better. Now, fine brush and some white gouache. The tiniest bit of light showing in his eye just here. So this is what makes or breaks it now. So it's not cheating. If it works, do it. So I could have used my masking fluid there, but I decided I'm going to keep it to brushwork for this bit. And we've got little bits of light coming down just there. The same here, top edge, and a little bit just here to the dark. Actually, I haven't rubbed that bit off yet. Let's rub that bit of masking fluid away there. There we are. That's where it should be, just there. And so a bit stronger just here. I'm going to come back in there and just tidy around that with a fine brush in a moment. We'll just touch a little bit on the edge of his lips. Just touch them up a little bit, texturing on the lips there. And coming down around the glasses here, when you just got a bit there, we'll put a little bit more on there. Coming up right over here. So we could have used masking fluid, but I decided I'd like to actually prefer to use that and a bit of the white gouache. To get these last effects of the... Do you see how light we've made this, how it's a lovely luminous watercolour? I did not want to paint it like an oil painting. Watercolour Astan, not happy with it yet. I've suddenly realised that I'd, at the end of the whole painting, that I'd been drawing and painting the whole thing in perspective. In other words, I'd had, because of the camera here, I'd had the board at an angle like that and across, meaning that I was looking along it. and it meant that I got distortions in the drawing even though I've been measuring out. And he needs more of his head here. The head needs to be more dome shaped here. The eyes and the nose actually work. Let me show you this on the computer. Computers are very good for this because you can take one image and superimpose it onto another, so I can take a linear drawing around that of angles and superimpose it onto the actual thing. So from the photograph to the actual painting, we notice that the eyes are okay, the nose is fine, but the mouth is slightly the wrong angle. He needs more chin here. We've lost it there so that his face comes forward. So his chin needs to come forward more here, and the head needs to come up more here, and the ear also needs to be slightly larger. And then I think the actual technique of painting wasn't too bad. Actually on here, it's very difficult to photograph a watercolour like this. You know, the colours either look too strong or too weak. I'm going to photograph this in daylight again. In daylight I'm not so unhappy with the colours. I was going to give it a thin glaze of rose, and I may still do that, but I think actually it's warm enough. So what we'll do now, we'll take some magic eraser, some sponge, special sponge that you can buy, and we'll try and remove this watercolour just to show what we can do to change a watercolour. People think you can't do anything with a watercolour, but you can actually adjust it. So let's have a look using this very thing. That when I've made a mistake, we'll see if we can rectify it, and we'll wash away the watercolour in the places that we want to rework it, and try and build it up that bit more until I'm happier with it, okay? Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is take a wash brush and just put some water where I want to remove some of this paint. So here, this whole area has to change, and then we'll do some bit of drawing back into it after that. So here, this whole area needs to be washed away. Let's see if we can use this special sponge now to lift away this paint. You can see it will, look. Try and, although it stains this paper, we've really got to try and lift away the paint here so that I can come back to lift away the surface of the paper there. Already, just seeing that becoming lighter, I can see some improvements. Down here, wash the sponge out again. See if we can take some more away. So I don't want to remove the surface of the paper, just the paint. And the mouth as well, as I say, the mouth actually isn't quite as high up as that, and to just soften that back a bit there and bring that mouth just downwards a bit. For me, I'm already seeing some improvements there. Now, because I've used gouache, white gouache, and being water-based, I will actually, rather than the acrylic, I'm actually lifting off that paint now, which is very useful. Let's just come up there a bit more there. I know it's stained the paper quite a lot, but I should be able to lift that out a bit more. Just a bit up there so that he's got slightly more of a domed head there. There we go. Now already in doing that, I've made some improvements and the scale looks a lot better. First of all, I'm going to add a little bit more blue to Daniel's eye. I can see this in better light. I'm thinking of doing a wash of rose over the whole thing to warm the whole thing up, I must admit. Magic sponge is alright, but it's coming off in bits on the paper. Now I can come back with my gouache, or designed as gouache, here later. Now let's start looking at these edges here. Right, it needs to be a little bit lighter. Take a wee touch of purple now and just bring that down this darker area here. It's a bit cooler in the purple. Come down and around the bottom edge here. The only thing with rubbing away watercolour paper like this is that you're taking away the natural glue size on the surface, so it can tend to make it much more absorbent. Drawing of his head makes more sense now. Well, almost there. Purple into it. I'll use for colour this violet purple. It's looking better than it did. Now, the very darks that we had before. And we've lifted the head right up from down here to here. The fact that you want lifting further forward there, so I'm going to have to take a bit more out of there. I'll start with my mop and just see if I can remove some of that. But that here needs to come a lot further forward this way and redraw it. Be careful because it's a bit wet yet. A bit more warmth into that. That here should be coming out here somewhere, and that curve comes across down here rather than back there. I don't want how hard it's there, that's for sure. Do a blend that in as well. Come back into there in just a moment when it's a bit drier. In the meantime, looking at this, I'd like some more purple down here. Take a little rose and put a glaze over here and see what happens. See if it warms it all up. As I hope it will. So rose as a glaze. I'll bring that into the foreground here a bit as well. A bit more of the cadmium orange down here to bring these yellows out a bit. Touch in the mouth there as well. Reflected light going on. We'll let that dry a moment. Two.
Now let's compare what we've been doing with the original. Here's the first one and the changes that we needed to make to it. Now let's move on to the final and we can see the same photograph and the changes we've made, and it now fits much more closely within that wire framework and that wire grid line to measurements.